timeline events? It started in Massachusetts. It was a pursuit that ended here in New Hampshire.
It did. It started with a domestic assault situation down in Lowell, Massachusetts, which the Lowell Police Department is investigating. But around 3:30 a.m., they got a call regarding a domestic assault situation in Lowell. The male subject involved in that situation fled in his vehicle. He ended up coming up into New Hampshire. He was armed with a handgun. He was eventually stopped in Pelham, New Hampshire. He was being pursued by several police agencies, including agencies from Massachusetts. They used a series of spike strips to stop him. He was stopped, got out of his vehicle. He was armed with a handgun. The police tried to negotiate with him to get him to surrender peacefully. They were unsuccessful. He ended up getting back into his car. He drove off of Route 38 onto Hobbs Road in Pelham. A police cruiser coming the other direction was able to forcefully stop him, bring him to a stop. The male subject stepped out of his vehicle armed with his handgun. He confronted the officers at the scene and actually turned and headed towards a group of police officers from several different agencies. He was armed with his handgun, would not drop the handgun, and as he approached those officers fired and they shot and killed him.
He has been identified as a 21-year-old Alberto Pagan. Do we know if he has any connection to New Hampshire, or is he a Massachusetts resident? What can you tell us about him?
He's a resident of Dracut, Massachusetts. He's 21 years old, and obviously that's under investigation as far as what connections he may have had to this state, or if he simply just decided to flee because this is the direction he went in. But obviously it's still pretty early on, but we'll be looking into any connections he has to New Hampshire.
Where did you use the spikes? On Hobbs Road to stop him?
No, on Hobbs Road, one of the cruisers actually rammed the front of his car and actually brought him to a stop. At that point, his tires were mostly shredded, though, so he wasn't going that fast at that point. But spike strips had been used earlier to try and disable his vehicle.
What type of vehicle was it?
His vehicle?
Yes.
It was I believe it's a four-door sedan, but it's down there at the scene right now. I believe it's just a four-door sedan.
And do you know what time the shooting occurred?
The call came in of shots fired at around 5:20, 5:25 a.m., right around there. So the police spent a considerable amount of time talking to him, trying to get him to surrender, but they were unsuccessful.
Did the man ever discharge his handgun?
As far as we know, he didn't, but that'll be part of the ballistics investigation will be done in this case to try and determine that. The state police are on the scene with the major crime unit. They're collecting evidence at the scene, looking for shell casings, bullet fragments, things like that, and then the weapons that were involved will be examined by the state police forensic laboratory to determine exactly what was fired.
Okay. Is there anything that we should look into this domestic situation that forced him to want to flee from Massachusetts up to New Hampshire? Was it a domestic situation that he was afraid could grow into something bigger?
Well, it's unclear right now. I mean, the Lowell Police Department in Massachusetts is investigating the domestic situation to see exactly what happened. But for whatever reason, this gentleman decided that he was going to flee to New Hampshire. He made several statements. We're looking into those, possibly some on Facebook as well, indicating that he intended to take his own life. So obviously that may have driven what he did today. But again, that's all part of the investigation still ongoing.
Just the pursuit itself, did it start then in Lowell, or where did this pursuit start? And was it what speeds did they reach, and where did it go to wind up here?
I don't know the exact details right now. I know it started in Massachusetts. He proceeded up into New Hampshire, and that's why you had several agencies involved, including agencies from New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And those are the different agencies that end up surrounding the subject when he was finally stopped on Hobbs Road.
Do you know had it been a high-speed chase, or?
I don't know at the speeds right now. I know that when he was finally confronted on Hobbs Road, he wasn't going that fast because his tires had been shredded.
Gonna be
Yeah.
Was he licensed to carry his weapon? Do you know?
We haven't looked into that yet because the weapon has been seized, but obviously we haven't run the serial number to see whether or not he was actually registered to carry that weapon.
Did you confirm that he was a licensed security guard, or have you?
We've heard that he was employed at a hospital as a security guard, but again, it's still pretty early on for us to determine definitively if that's true or not. But we've heard that.
Do you know how many shots were fired from law enforcement officials?
Right now, I can just tell you several officers from several different agencies fired their weapons. We'll have to do the ballistics on this to determine exactly the number that were fired and how many actually hit the deceased. Right now, an autopsy is scheduled on the deceased for tomorrow by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, so we expect to have autopsy results at some point tomorrow.
Can you tell us the names of the agencies involved, just so we're sure?
Not at this time, because until we actually go through and go further investigation, we're not sure exactly who fired and from what agency. I can tell you there were several agencies from New Hampshire and from Massachusetts as well.
All right, thank you.